What's happening, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of San Diego Prep Insider, the official podcast of the San Diego CIF section. Christian Pedersen, and it is just me and Bodie DeSilva. Not just, I shouldn't say. That's very, that's discrediting to Bodie's role that he plays in this show as stats and research, as well as our journalistic arm. Bodie's joining us on behalf of Scorebook Live, the official digital content provider of all things CIF San Diego section, all things everything high school sports, but we like them for their CIF San Diego section coverage. You can also follow Bodie at SD Preps. This will be our last football show because if we're talking to, maybe we'll talk about some football next week, like of recapping best players and whatever. But this is our last, there's no more games.
We've got some fictional awards.
Yes. Oh, yes. I love fictional awards. But we have actual state championship games to talk about. 4 teams out of the 6 from San Diego advance on to the state finals. Bodie, I want to say it was you in our group chat that said going 500, going 3 out of 6 was good. I think it might have been Tommy. I don't know. It might have been you. I don't remember off the top of my head, but stop me if I'm saying something incorrect. But we were like, yeah, it's kind of a coin toss here. We don't really know what we got. We whooped ass. That's great. 4 out of 6 is awesome. 4 out of 6 where 2 of them were absolute thrashings, one of which you attended. Let's just get started there. Lincoln, they beat Sierra Canyon. It looked like a true thorough start to finish defeat. So they're going to go on now to play De La Salle on Friday the 9th at Saddleback College for the Division I AA championship. Bodie, tell us what you saw last week out of the Lincoln Hornets when you were up on the road at Sierra Canyon, and tell us a little bit about this matchup.
Yeah, Lincoln was super impressive. I'd certainly gave them a shot going in. I think I'd be lying if I say I expected them to win because I respect the Sierra Canyon team, but Lincoln went up there pouring rain for much of the first half and did all they needed to. They were down, it was 7-3 early, and they ended up scoring 5 touchdowns in a row. Roderick Robinson looked the best he has in a couple months here, and certainly not 100%, but still went for 181 and 4 touchdowns. And it just felt like early on in the second half, Lincoln made a couple big plays and really just broke Sierra Canyon, got them out of what they wanted to do. And Lincoln just had that thing rolling. It was a super impressive effort to do that up at one of the Southern Section's best teams and bring home a huge win, and still got business ahead of time. I mean, De La Salle is such a storied program, probably as much as any in the country. Their win streak over the years and how many times they've been in these games. So they've got their work cut out, but it'll be a fun one on Friday night.
So you guys at Scorebook Live have access to some of the best reporters statewide, section-wide, all that kind of information. Any major insights that you feel like people have to know about De La Salle that you're like, if you can distill it down to simplest form of consumption for the casual football fan, like what's the thing about this year's De La Salle team that Lincoln fans and or just general San Diego supporters need to be looking for or need to be looking out at?
Yeah, for De La Salle, they will be without their tight end Cooper Flanagan. He's headed to Notre Dame, really good player. Unfortunately, got hurt a couple weeks back, but they're still really talented. Running back Charles Greer's headed to Fresno State. They've got an offensive lineman, Cooper Powers, is headed to TCU. So much like Lincoln, there's guys on both sides of the ball that they're college guys here in the future. So they're set up for, and we know De La Salle wise, they want to run the ball. They've been running this veer for so long, had so much success with it. Certainly not, I wouldn't say this is their best team in a while, but they're always so strong. It's kind of just
they've made it to this point in the season.
Get back to this point.
There's no quantifying it as a blue.
They beat Folsom last week, who has been in this game 2 years in a row with Cathedral. So certainly Lincoln has their work cut out for them, but they don't go into this as some huge underdog and you don't give them a chance. Like this, to me, is a very even game, and we'll see who's able to step up.
We know what the offense more or less looks like from Lincoln. Like we'll have to pay attention to that tight end position on De La Salle to see if the Lincoln defense can get in there and exploit some of that. For more, make sure you download the SB Live Sports app. Visit scorebooklive.com. You can follow all of Bodie's prep up to the game. You can follow there along also for great photos, score updates, all that kind of goodness. If you cannot make it to Saddleback College, next one down is the 2AA state championships, the Modern Day Catholic Crusaders. I posted the GIF of the call an ambulance, but not for me. Like they're always down late apparently, and they just don't care. They've always got a W in their back pocket. Bodie, it's what, 11 in a row now for Modern
10 in a row.
10 in a row now for this season. They move on to play McClendon Talents. I'm not going to McClellan's. I'm not going to try and say that too many times.
Yeah.
There's a lot of C's and Y's and L's that we don't have here in San Diego high schools. This again seems like I Modern Day Catholic, the narrative all season long has been how good are they? Do they deserve this jump up to Division I? And this seems like at this point, this is just where we expected this team to be. So they have to be favored in this game. And I know Joyner likes us picking against him, but I say this kind of unbiasedly now at this point, because we have such a large sample size of they're a really good football team. And some of the wins can be categorized as uglier than others per like traditional football standards, but 10 wins in a row, all of these Division I talents, like they're getting it done. Some games with offense, some games with defense, like they have a little bit of everything. So I don't see how at this point they haven't checked all the boxes that would make you think this team is primed and ready for a state championship. Bodie, your thoughts on what you saw either last week with Modern Day Catholic or going into this matchup for the state 2AA championship?
Yeah, good timing with this one. I actually just posted a story on kind of recapping the season for Modern Day Catholic, how they got to this point. Started off 0-4, as was talked about for quite some time. Then it was perfect timing for them to have their bye week. They reset things, 6 straight shutouts after that point. Obviously now the win streak's at 10. And the last couple of weeks, it hasn't been the shutout way. It's been them needing a comeback and then being able to pull it off, whether it was against Mission Hills in the Division I championship game, 3 late touchdowns there between the two teams. Modern Day Catholic gets the win there with 3 seconds left. Last week, they go up to Downey. They're down 21-0 early second quarter. Keep cutting away. They score with 4 minutes left and win that one 22-21. So just feels the way they're headed, like, I don't know how you could pick against them this week. McClymonds is certainly talented, 12-1. They've scored 567 points, outscored their opponents by almost 400 points this year. Like, they can score the ball. There's no doubt. I expect this one to be.
Goodness, that's a lot of points.
Yeah, I'm expecting this one to be high scoring for sure. But with the way Modern Day Catholic's playing and what they've done, they've been experienced. They were in this exact same game a year ago. I can't pick against them at this point, but I think this will be a really fun, high scoring game on Friday.
You know what was a fun, high-scoring game? Every game that Granite Hills has played so far this postseason, it seems, has been a fun, high-scoring game. They move on handily. They took Etowah and they beat them senseless. And they made a fool out of them. And now they take on San Ramon Valley for the state 2A championship. This one could be an interesting one, Bodie, because we could hypothetically, as a CIF San Diego section, sweep the Division II state bowls between Mater Dei and Granite Hills. So I am really focused on both of these. And I feel like Granite Hills, man, they whooping that ass. So I don't even want to go against them just momentum wise, but also at some point you got to tip your cap and be like, holy hell, that is a ton of like this offense is unstoppable. And regardless of how good some of their, they could allow for some of their star defensive players on that line to be completely contained and their offense will still carry them with a 50 spot. And I don't know how you game plan on, we'll slow them down only to 35 and that puts you in a chance to beat Grant. Like, I don't see how this offense doesn't roll one more time to a state championship game. Your thoughts on Granite Hills last week, Granite Hills this week, and the fact that we could, like I said, take both of those Division II games.
Yeah, Granite Hills was the one I felt most confident about last week, getting that home game. It just felt like they were in the right spot to make something happen, and they took care of business against an Etowah team that came in really hot at that time of year. I feel confident about them once again. Them and San Ramon Valley, who will be their opponent. This is the same game that Scripps Ranch was in last year, same exact 3 up at Saddleback for San Diego. I think the thing that sets Granite apart for me is just how they're able to score the ball. They are able to use several guys at quarterback. They were able to hand the ball off to several guys. Defensively, they've been so good taking advantage of interceptions and returning them for scores this year. They've scored a couple times on special teams as well. Whether or not the defensive thing, I think there's one thing to creating turnovers. It might be luck to be able to return a bunch of them for touchdowns, or they just know how to block when their teammate gets the ball. But regardless, the way Granite Hills is playing, for me, it's impossible to pick against them. I like them to take care of business here. Not to say it'll be a blowout. I think this will be a competitive game, but I like Granite to win this one. And hopefully cap off what's looks like a great weekend for San Diego again.
Going down finally to the 6AA championship, Classical Academy. They move on after a Saturday win. They're going to take on Santa Teresa this Saturday, December 10th will be this game. Classical Academy, same as Granite Hills. Like, if you're going to go in for one, go in for them all. Like, you're going to win your first one in school history. Why not just keep playing football as long as you can with a championship team? And it seems that the offensive life, Pollard, is very established. Like, he's going to be one of the best running backs in the season, in the county, when all is said and done at the end of the year. He's pretty decently accomplished. He got to be, he was recognized as a star of the month for November by the San Diego Sports Association. Like, they're good. I think they're, if you look competitive wise where 6AA is at, I think they're very competitive for this. I think we've seen some of these different, either Francis Parker or Country Day, like, there's been a couple of different of these smaller schools in these lower divisions the last couple of years out of San Diego that are perfectly suited to win at this level. And I think the Classical's ready for this. And I think that of all of them, this one still feels like it could be one of the closer dogfights. Like, this feels like kind of on par with the Lincoln game, where it's going to be a little bit of a pick'em. But in a pick'em, when you got an offense that has a good running back like that and a decent offensive line, maybe it's a tad bit more pick'em one way than the other. So I like Classical. I roll with Classical. I think that I obviously am the homer who's going to say we're going to go 4 out of 4. But of all the years that we've been doing this, Bodie, this is I think the highest aggregate confidence that I have felt at this point in the season for San Diego high school football teams. So your thought on Classical Academy, the 6AA game, and just closing out the state playoffs?
Yeah, I'm with you here as well. I feel pretty confident in Classical. They're taking on Santa Teresa, who that was a new team to me. There are so many teams up here in California. They are from the San Jose area. But I think what's cool about both these teams is neither of them won league. Neither of them finished second in their own league. It just shows the perseverance. They got into the playoffs, whatever division it may be, and just worked their way through and have both gotten to this point. For Santa Teresa, it was fourth in their league. For Classical, they finished third in that league. 1 and 2, a really small league there. But when it came playoff time, they did what they needed to. They're at this point. They both come in on big winning streaks. So I like Classical with what Life Pollard's been doing recently. I think he'll step up, have one last game here to finish off the high school career. And they've been really good. I mean, the last 2 weeks, 33-14 over Crawford, 34-14 over Lancaster. The way they're playing, I think this is another close one because they will have to travel on the road. That's the deal for the Southern California teams this year that are not playing at Saddleback. So they'll make the trip up to San Jose, but I think the Classical will go up there and take care of business and get that win. Now, that's me picking 4 out of 4, just like you. We'll see. Maybe that won't happen, but I certainly think they're in a good position to do so.
All right, Bodie, let's talk a little bit of basketball before we get everybody out of here. And again, you can follow SB Live Sports app or visit scorebooklive.com for all of this stuff, all high school sports long. The San Diego Prep Insider podcast goes all high school sports long. Basketball, I think that we talked just enough about it last week to give everybody a little bit of a taste. More of the same, largely still. We are just now entering into the actual, tournaments phase and not just the exhibition tournaments phase. And I think we've got the Holiday Classic coming up. Hilltop tournament's been happening. It's the one that they put on at Madison.
The regional rumble.
Like, those are starting to happen now, where we're like, some of these are good sample size. We're 5 or 6 games in. We know a little bit more. And I think that I want to expand what I was saying beyond it being Saints and San Ysidro, and then the field that it maybe looks like San Ysidro. Could you make the case that team has played enough big games in their respective AAU and whatever lives that they don't take every single game of this San Ysidro season, like, with the intensity of an axe murderer? And
I think that's fair to say.
Maybe, sure. I don't want to besmirch some people, but high school sports is more important for some than others, depending on what sport you play and what your status is as a recruit and yada, yada, yada. Like, we don't need to get into that, but you know kind of what I'm talking about. And I would like to expand it to maybe 5 teams. I still do feel like San Ysidro and Saints is the logical, like, if you played it out in a compact tournament style size, but I think Carlsbad has looked fantastic this year. Torrey Pines, again, solid as always. Montgomery and LCC. And I know that's 6, and I'd say maybe Montgomery and LCC are kind of fringe on that, but it feels maybe like the field, at least for right now, is opening a little bit wider. So hit the people with your top 10 and anything you need to get out about basketball this week on our way out of the show.
Yeah, so up at top at St. Augustine for me, they moved to 7-0 last night, a win at Carlsbad. Carlsbad was a little shorthanded, but ultimately I think those are 2 open division teams. The Saints will be off now for a couple weeks until they start those holiday tournaments. San Ysidro is there at number 2. They have a big game coming up this weekend. They're heading out to Phoenix to play Perry from Arizona. So that'll be one that certainly no given for them. And they've scheduled huge competition, and that's what they've asked for. They'll get that all season long. Torrey Pines is there at number 3. They've been, as you said, super solid. They always are. Carlsbad's there at number 4 for me. I expect them to have a really good season. I think Montgomery is one of the teams that coming in and maybe is off a little some people's radar, but this should be one of the better teams they've had in school history there. At number 6, Mater Dei Catholic. I wasn't sure on them. They lost their opener, but since then they've reeled off some wins, including an impressive win over Cathedral last week. Speaking of Cathedral, they come in there at number 7. They're headed up to Sacramento for a tournament this week. They'll take on some good teams, including De La Salle there. El Camino is there at number 8. Interesting one here because they did beat San Ysidro in their first game of the year, but since then they've dropped games to Saints and Cathedral. So I still think El Camino is really good, but they need to get some more games under their belt to just kind of figure out who they are at this point, because I think they're somewhere in between. I don't think they're 1 or 2, but they may also be better than 8, 9, or 10. So we'll see from them as they go on. La Costa Canyon's there at number 9. Some losses early on that I think were a bit of a surprise, but at the end of the day, they'll be up there. And then Mission Bay's coming in there at number 10. I know they're in the Hilltop tournament right now. They've been on such a run these last 5 or 6 years, and when it comes down to it, they will be in the mix as well.
Really appreciate it, Bodie. Like I said, you can follow them at SB Live Sports app or scorebooklive.com. You can follow Bodie at SD Preps or SB Live CA on social. We are SD Prep Insider. I'm Mr. CPET. Talk to you guys next week.